Good afternoon, folks. It's time for some more development on Unreal Engine 5. Hope you're all having a lovely day. And today we are going to take a quick look at our keyboard conundrum. Now, if Thomas HPG happens to be watching, let me know. And we can take a look at your issues, which is to do with stretching a mesh in one direction. Okay, so as I said, if Thomas HPG is watching, then let me know in the chat and we can take a look. But we can begin with taking a look at our main menu, and this is something that we briefly looked at last night. But I want to take a further look at whether it is a good idea to do this or not, right? As you can see here, we have different buttons which I added last night for our different options. Okay, now obviously I don't want this to be done for each movement. What I would actually want here is for this to be in a grid and to have like up W, down S, left A, right D. Okay, so we have two different options here. We have option number one, which is the simplest, which is just remove the second button, or two, to turn this into a grid and to check if it is the same button or same action that we are trying to do in our keybinds, right? So I think what we'll do is we shall take a quick look at it to see if we can quite easily do this, right? And what we want to do is minimize that down, and it is our fourth box, and that's going to show us our key bindings, right? But we're going to have to go to our graph, and this is actually the key bindings. Okay, so what we're doing is we're getting this, then we're getting the name, So to start this off, we're going to say actually we don't need to do that because we already have this temp camera direction, which isn't really the correct term for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to name it something a little more relevant. Temp binding name. Okay? Now, our next thing that we're going to have to do is find out what we actually add here. We have v action so this is a vertical box, right? So we're adding something to the vertical box, okay? So that's going to be v axis bindings okay, and we're clearing it there. Add child to vertical box, okay, and we are adding this key binding, okay, and what we're going to have to do now is this would have to be wrapped in a grid. So let's wrap it with a grid panel. Okay. And we're going to make this GP underscore key selector. Okay. And our next problem, well, not a problem yet, right? We're going to press play and we're going to see how this looks. Okay. Not too bad at the moment, but I do think that we might be better I'm going to leave that for now. I think we might actually be better here with a uniform grid. right? But we can always sort that out. Okay, let's just do that, shall we? Right, what I'm going to do here is we shall wrap this with a uniform grid. Then our uniform grid will go there, and this grid will go here. Okay. And then we shall rename this UGP, we'll just call it selector. Okay. We'll save that. And we'll see how that looks. Now that's kind of mucking this up, right? But we're not going to worry about that too much yet. This scale box, and we probably want to wrap this with a scale box as well. And we'll say that, and we'll just muck about with it for now, right? Right, so these are all in line again. Make that 15. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll try that. Okay. Okay. Right. So delete that. Well, we'll need to delete that. Then go back to our options. So we're going to duplicate this. And we're going to say previous binding name. And then we shall actually rename this to current binding name. Okay. And We're going to drag this in. And we're going to say that is not equal to that. Right, now this should have an immediate effect. No, just leave it. Just leave it, Cybershell. You can use certain network replication-y type things in a single player game, but it isn't very performance efficient. Right, you can use like oh god, I can't remember what it's called. It's basically there's a thing in network replication where you can basically say, if this changes, then do this, right? It's like a notify. It's like a notify if something's changed, and you can use it in a single player game, but it's not recommended. So any of the replication stuff and all that, I would just leave it. Don't even worry about it. Just leave it. Right, so if this is not equal to it, then we can go ahead. Okay, now here is where the fun starts. Now we should get, that was not what I was expecting. I've got to say that. Okay. Hang on a second here. Have I put this in the wrong place? No. Right. Okay. Once we've done here, right, we need to set it, right? So at the end, once we've done everything, we've got to set this to be the previous binding name. Right, so we say current binding name equal previous binding name equals current binding name. Okay. Once we have done everything else. Right. Now this should have an effect. So we go options, bindings. Well, I wasn't expecting that. Okay. Okay, so we're going to use our breakpoints. Okay. So we go options. And our current binding name is forward. Our previous binding name is none. Right. Okay. So we resume that. Our current binding name is backward. Our previous is forward. So it does it. Okay. So let me just try this. I want to find out if so we step over that. Okay. Hi, Harry Potter. It's nice to have a wizard in the house. So we're adding the child to the vertical box. Axis mapping by name. See, I think, right, okay. So we're doing this for each one. Right. So we create the widget and then we set the key from the widget. Okay. I knew this wasn't going to be quite as obvious. And we've got this index array. Right, is it a keyboard key? Right. Okay. Right, because we are going to make some changes to this that might actually be quite dramatic, I'm going to do a copy of this. Hi Marcus Games, how are you, mate? Why is all that connected to there? We're going to undo that and undo that. Right, and then we're going to copy. And then we're going to paste this. Right, I'm good, mate. I'll be better once I get this working exactly how I want it. But yeah, we're doing good. Ah, damn you. Right. So, our interesting thing here is that we only want to create this once, right? Okay. So the idea here might not be to do a UGP. The idea here, better idea here might be to have it wrapped in a horizontal box, right? And then we can add to the horizontal box, because having it in a grid, it might not have a second button. We always know it's going to have one. And it would now appear that I actually need another widget. Right, and this is going to be, I'm going to call it Keybind selector. Right, and we're going to copy that. We're going to delete that, and we're going to paste it in. Okay. Now, if we look at our keybind, we've got this text key selector. Right? But what we actually want to do got this text action, which is the one on the left. Right? And in here we need this to be a variable which we can then add to we can call it HB selectors. Okay, now we can quickly test this. Right, because this is going to be HB selectors. Okay. So we'll do this up here, and we'll say create widget. Right, and it's going to be KB selector. Okay. And then we've got our thing here. So we can say set apparently set selected key. Right, so we'll say set wait a minute. So this is a variable, so it's text key selector. Hi Mr. Spock, how are you today? Right, so we're going to here, text, we get the text key selector, then we duplicate this and that goes in the target, and that goes in the selected key, and that goes in there, then we add child to horizontal box. This isn't going to look quite right. I'm good, mate. I'm good. I think I need a coffee. And what we're going to do is we're going to plug that in there. And we're going to plug that in there. And then this is going to go in here. Now, what I'm expecting here is something a little bit weird. There we go. That's what I wanted. Kinda. Right? So we're getting our two buttons, but they aren't kinda split up yet. Right, so there's something a bit weird going on. We have got our first victory though. And that's the widget, and this is text action name, right? Text action name, and that's the action name. Right? Now, the interesting thing here is I'm going to hide this for the moment, and I want to see what happens when I do that. Wow. Okay. So there's still something weird going on here. Well, the results I'm getting aren't fantastic because it's not working. Right. I need to know a couple of things. I need to know what this array looks like, and I need to know what this array looks like. Okay. Hey Kiwi Mastermind, how you doing, bud? So this is all rather interesting. Yeah, but I was getting doubles because I was cheating. Right? I was getting doubles because I was cheating and not because the logic was correct. If I step over this, right. So there we go. We get our axis names. Okay. And that's all the names in our input from our project settings. Okay. Now, the next part of the puzzle is okay, whatever. The next point of our puzzle is what this array looks like, right? We've got keypad left, up and W. So this is the part. Hi, somebody, how you doing, bud? We've got all the usual suspects in today. Mr. Spock, somebody, Kiwi Mastermind, Magus Games, I believe, Marcus Games, Cyber Shell, and we've got a wizard, Harry Potter. Right, okay. Okay. Here is the rub. Now, I'm as well going wild here. I'm as well going wild. What I'm going to do is not that. Well, I could do that. It doesn't make any difference. But what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to move these two nodes along a bit. Right, this is all going to go to shit, by the way. So don't blame me. Right, it's going to go to shit real fast. Right, now we might need to set okay, just bear with me, guys, bear with me. Right, so this is our individual buttons. At this point, we want to have created this array, okay? Sorry, this widget, right? We want to have created this widget with its action before we do anything, okay? So, yeah. So, before we do anything that's going to be completely bonkers, right? What I'm going to do is go for a cigarette. Today I installed a new Windows 5.0, so I tried to convert my project and for some reason Nanite doesn't work properly and inside my house. Yeah, that's kind of why I don't upgrade, because there's no guarantees anything's going to work. Yeah, that's usually to do with dynamic lighting and stuff, whether you've got dynamic lighting set or whether you've got something else set. Allow static lighting. It's in your project settings. Right, I'm going to do that. Okay. And then I'm going to do that. And I'm going to expect things to go horribly wrong. Okay. But I'm going to have a cigarette first. Forgot about that. Yeah, my advice would be that never to go with a current project that you're working on. Never go with the latest version of it, and don't try and do it in the latest version, because it's like every other bit of software these days, it usually doesn't work right. Right, so I'm going to go grab a cigarette. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. Check out the description for links to my previous game and Patreon and Discord if you haven't already joined, and I shall be back in 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back and we'll fix this. Okay guys, I'm back. Sorry about that. Didn't get time to make my coffee. Didn't want to leave you guys too long. Anyway, somebody, did you upgrade the project from 5.03? How did you go about upgrading the project is my question. Don't want to do that. And I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll copy this. Because what I'm saying is, if you upgraded the project, then what you could try is to migrate your project rather than copy it. And all then you need to do is migrate the map, right? And if your map is using all your assets, it'll basically migrate all your assets as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get a copy of element 0, right? Then we're going to break it, and we're going to use we're going to use these to set, okay, maybe we're not. We're going to use these right? And then we're going to get txt action name. We're going to get that, and then we're going to set that in there, right? And then we're going to do that. We're going to do that. Right? And this text set action name thing, now this is also coming from our widget, right? So we can delete this, we can duplicate that if it's going to let us. Apparently it doesn't want to let us. Then we can delete that, okay? And as far as I believe, we can set this and plug that in there. Okay, maybe we can't. We plug that in there. Then we reroute this to here. Okay. And we actually reroute this to here. Wait a minute. No, we don't. We reroute that to here. Okay. We'll tidy this all up at the end, don't worry. I know it's a mess, guys, I know it's a mess. But we can sort it. And I've got a horrible feeling there that I was actually muted or something, but I'm not, so that's good. Okay. How do you think this is going to go, guys? Do you think this is going to be a mess? Or do you think I'm a genius, guys? Now our problem is well, actually we haven't got a problem yet. Right. Our problem, not that we have one just yet, is that we need to tidy this crap up. And then we need to apply it to this. Sorry, not to that. To our action buttons, which is going to be the same, right? But let's first tidy this stuff up. So basically, all of that can go. That can go. Okay, wait a minute. We're not going to do that just yet. What we're going to do is we're going to delete this. Right, okay, well, what you could do, as I said, is create a new project in create a new project in 5.1 from scratch, right? Okay. Then, basically, go into your original project from 5.03, then open that up, select your map, and then say migrate, and then migrate it to your new project that you've just created. You got me on that? Do you understand what I'm saying? Hopefully that kind of makes sense to you. Let me just tidy this up, guys. In fact, that doesn't even need to go there. We can basically do that. And delete that. That goes there. That goes there. Okay, so things are going a bit better now. Hi, Brainiac Game Dev. How are you this fine afternoon? Well, it's afternoon for me. Right, we have our two sets here. And that can go there. Right guys, we're still tidying up here. And what are you working on, Brainiac? So we'll push that into here. Then this is beginning to look a bit more well, shall we say a bit tidier. Can I at least say that it's looking a bit tidier? Come on guys, it's a bit tidier. Yes, you've got to go into your old project in 5.03, right? Then you've got to select your map and then migrate it to, and then when it tells you where you want to migrate it to, select your new project, your new fresh project that you just created in 5.1. Right. Oh, so hate these nodes sometimes. Oh, I hope you like. It's a genre I have never really done anything with. But if you have, I hope you do learn something. Right, so now that's looking better. Right, it is a bit complicated, but hey ho, that's life sometimes. Now we want to do the exact same thing for our other keybinds. Okay, so we'll just check that it's still working and I haven't screwed it up. Right, so yep, we're still working there. That's good. We like that indeed. We super like that. Right, our only issue now is that these aren't working, and that's because I changed the text selector thing. Right, so what I need to do is convert this. This is slightly different because this is our actions and not our axis. Okay. So we need to take whatever the initial part is and swap it basically for this part, right? So this is going to be fun. Right, it doesn't look as if it's going to be. So what would you like to learn today, Brainiac? What's your big stumbling block at the moment? That has to be the question. Right. So we're going to copy this part. Okie dokie. We don't really need to do this, but just to keep it all in the same style and keep everything samey. Yeah, just do what it says. You just migrate the, if you right click on the map or the level, whatever one you call it, and then it'll have asset actions, and then and under asset actions, it will say migrate. You click on migrate, and then it will ask you which content folder you want. So you basically just navigate to your new project and then click on the content folder, and it will basically migrate everything, as long as everything is related to your map. Right, so our next point here is we need to, now the interesting thing here is I haven't got separate buttons for these. I've only got one button, right? And Brainiac, let me explain so that you're not in the blind about this. What I'm doing is I'm adjusting the key bindings, because what I had was, the way it was done before, it would go forward, and it would have two separate lines for up and W, and then two separate lines with backward and down, backward and S, then left, left and A. So what I've done is I've basically created this into a horizontal box, and then I add each individual keybind to the horizontal box so that I get the only one category of movement, and then the two buttons that are actually assigned to that action, right? And because I've changed this interact with item and stun aren't working because of the new layout, so I just need to copy the code that basically does this. Okay, so the question is whether I copy this into this or this into this. Fundamentally, it's going to end up as the same thing, really. Right, so yeah, I should really copy from this to this. Right, so we're going to do branch. Now, there's kind of a bit of this that is superfluous. Right, but that doesn't matter because I could now set up having two action buttons. So basically, we want it to work either way. Okay, and with that in mind, I'm going to give us some more space. The only things that are changing here is the fact that whether I'm getting an action button or an axis button. These are the action buttons, right? So basically when this is saying action key, the one down here is axis, okay? But fundamentally we're kind of doing the same thing. So from that point of view, what I do is get I get a copy of that, okay, right, okay, and I move these two along a bit. That goes there. Then we basically do that. Okay. Then you delete these. Then we plug that in there, and that goes in there. Then we can drag these along a bit. Plug that in. Okie dokie. And we can do that. And that goes in there. That goes in there. Do that down a bit. We can drag this down a bit. That down a bit. And that down a bit. Just tidy this up as we go, guys, okay? And what I'll do is I'll drag this over a bit. Okay. So we're looking good. We're looking good so far. And that's fine. And input action key mapping. And that's fine. Just do this bit by bit. I'm just trying to get to where I am in the grand scheme of things here. So we'll drag all that except this into line here. Okay. And the next thing we're going to do is this. Right? And we're going to duplicate that. Okay. And this is going to go in here. Okay. And this is actually going to go in here. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drag that down, and then I'm going to do a reroute node, and then I'm going to plug it in. Okay. And this keyboard mapping is going to go in here. And this is where we're going to add the thing to our actual vertical box, right? And that, if I am correct, which there's a distinct possibility I'm not, might be that. Let's try it, shall we? Oh, well, my lordy. That worked a treat. So now, if I can get my mouse to work for a minute, all I need to do now is remove all that. Well, I need to stop it first. Delete that. Grab all this. I can delete that. By the way, guys, you might be thinking, sitting there thinking that I know exactly what I'm doing and I expect everything to work, but I really don't. Sometimes it does, and sometimes I have to go back and fix it all because I've got something dramatically wrong. But in this case, we've actually managed to update that code and get it to work and not had too many issues. I thought now it's all a matter of formatting, right? I do obviously want certain things to be better aligned, but as far as just working goes, I'm actually pretty happy with that, I've got to say. Okay. And there we go. So we'll have a look at that one more time, make sure it's still working and I haven't made any complete clangers. Key bindings, F, spacebar, W, all working fantastic. Okay. So that's working a treat, and I'm going to celebrate by going getting myself a coffee. I shall be back in 2 minutes. It takes me about 3 minutes to make a coffee. So don't go anywhere, guys. I'll be right back. Okay guys, we're all coffeed up again. Problem is that it's cold here, and where I am it's not really set up for cold, it's set up for heat. So basically when it gets cold there's no insulation and it's blooming cold. Anyway, as you can see, our thing is working properly. How did you get on with that, somebody? And what we need to do now is basically get these and we can basically delete this now. Okay. Right, we're going to say no to that, and what we're going to do is not that. We're going to get this, and we're going to find references, and it says no results found, which is a bit weird. Right, but we're going to delete that, and you said you didn't find any references. Right. So as we expected, this still works, which is good. Right, and now we need to get these and yeah, I mean, I didn't mind winter that much when I lived in a cold country because you're kind of used to it, but the problem is, or not really a problem, but is you're used to it and you're set up for it. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to probably screw this up. Right? I'm going to wrap this with a size box. Right, and we want a width of, let's say, 100, right? And then we'll try it. Oh, what about that, guys? What about that? We obviously need it to be bigger. So we can say 150. Now, what I could do here I'm liking that, guys. I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. It's simple, just don't screw it up. Well, sometimes you can screw the simplest things up. Right, I'm going to stop this. And if I am correct, which I believe I am, what I can then do is wrap this in a scale box. Right now, that's going to look absolutely crazy at the moment, but what it should do is scale our text down to fit in the box, like so. But now our size box is the wrong way around. Although I'm not particularly unhappy with that result, to be fair. And I wonder if I do that. Now, I want to change one thing, then put it back, right? Because I don't want to screw it up completely. And there we go. Voila. Guys, what do you think? Does that look like a nice key binding setup to you? Because I sure think it does. And I'm going to get a sip of my coffee for that. Now, I'm wondering if Mr. Spock is still here. If you're still watching Mr. Spock, let me know. Because I have a surprise. Or a little bit of a surprise. Not a big surprise, just a little one. Anyway. So now we have exactly what we were looking for. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it either. The only thing that I can say is kind of wrong with it is, and it's not really a problem, is this isn't lined up with this. But the way it's looking just now, I'd be perfectly happy with that. I mean, it is extra fancy right now because the way I had it before, right, so I'm going to close this, right? I'm going to show you something. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do something mad. And this is for somebody, if you're still watching, pay attention. I'm going to quickly show you this while I'm at it. Right, if you go into your project, you can say static, and under engine rendering, you've got allow static lighting. Right, now if you allow static lighting, you're going to get all the build data, because that's going to give you your static lighting mask thing. Okay, so as I said, there's a setting here, allow static lighting. You can disable it or enable it. Now, the one thing I will say is if you click that, then it rebuilds all your lighting and basically does everything, and it can take a while if you've got a big project with lots of maps. But if you've not got a lot of stuff, then it shouldn't take too long. But do consider the fact that it does take time to do that. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is show you what happens here if, for example, I add a button to my forward. Okay, so let's say I wanted a third set. What I could do is say keyboard, then let's say it was, I don't know, let's say number 7, right? And I close that. Now when I run the options in keybinds, you'll notice that 7 now comes up, and I can change it or whatever, right? So this is basically now very dynamic in the fact that it's gonna add stuff, take stuff away when I add to the inputs. Right, it allows me to reset all the keybinds in however way I want. Okay. The other thing would be, of course, if I added a brand new button, an action button that is, and I can show you if I do that. So let's take this other one away first. Right, we don't really want this number 7, that was just an example. But say for example we wanted an action, right, and we wanted pause. Now we all know that that is normally the escape key, right? So if I now close that and press play, go to options, keybinds, right, it's not going to do that, and that's because I haven't told it to. But if I go into the options, right, and add a pin, then do that, and then say pause. So I just basically call it the exact same thing that I called it in the inputs, then just basically join it up to there and join it to there, complete, and it's as simple as that for me to change keybinds now. So you'll notice now if I go into options, there's my pause, escape. There we go. So hopefully you guys have found something out of that. I've got something. Could do a little bit of padding there as well. Right, so if we go it here, and we basically set padding to 5 and 5. Mr. Spock, I have a surprise for you. If you hang on a second. Now that doesn't look very much, so we'll make it 10 and 10. Well, hang around just 5 more minutes and I'll show you what I've got. And we don't seem to have a very good... Oh well, never mind. It's not that much of a big deal. We're not going to worry about that. Right. And this is for Mr. Spock. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save everything. And if we go into here, and ATM, I had a look at your little hacking thing. Now, I thought it was going to be easier than it was, but it's not because my idea didn't work. It was because Unreal Engine renders widgets differently. Right, and in some cases the Z order doesn't seem to work. But here was my first Now, you might notice that the A doesn't move at the top left. And that's to simulate the code of where it starts, etc. Now, I did have a plan to make it work, but it had to get more complicated due to the way that it actually renders. This literally took me 5 minutes. This wasn't the problem. The problem was that I have to basically tell it that that A, or rather the widget underneath, does not render. Okay, so that A is covering up another widget, right? But if I don't make it invisible, you can actually see the widget behind the other widget, which I didn't think would happen, right? And it would have made things a lot easier, but it's still certainly doable, right? It's just going to be a little bit more complicated, that basically I need to stop it rendering in certain positions, right? But I had that basically done. Okay, but that was the start I made on it. And it's not that much code really. So let me explain how I did this. Right, that's it. Basically, I created a variable, and it's actually in the hack button. Right, so the button just looks like that, right? Now, what I thought it would do is draw over itself, because when you render something over the top of something else, then you shouldn't be able to see the thing behind it. But for some reason, don't ask me why, widgets look as if they're transparent, even though you set it to be not transparent. Okay? And basically all I did was I set up a string variable with all the letters of the alphabet plus numbers, right? And then what you do is you get a character array from a string, then you randomize which one you get, and then I set it in the widget, right? That's if it's a random character. If it's not a random character, then I basically give it a code letter and pass in the actual code of the letter, so which in that case I just said A, right? And then I basically set the position, because in a grid of widgets you can't tell what position the widget is, right? You have to actually set up variables to say where it is in the grid. So for example, I pass in the widgets, I set up the widgets and I make them at a grid position, and I basically say, right, you are position 0, 0. Then the next one I say your position 0, 1, your position 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4. And then basically what I do is, depending on the position of the code, it's going to be like, if it's line 7, column 10, then I say your position starts at 710, you're 6 digits long. So basically what I do is I go in there and say, okay, hide these other widgets because they are going to cover the code, right? And that's it. I didn't get that far, but as I said, I was more getting frustrated with the fact that things were rendering over the top of each other. And I'll show you what I mean by that. If I don't set things visible or not, right, I set up an array of not visibles, okay? So if I don't do this, I'll just show you exactly what I mean. Now, I thought that if I put the Z order of the code higher, then it would obscure or basically blank out the previous, what was underneath it, but it doesn't, which you'll see in a minute. You see how it doesn't obscure it at the top left? You can still see it. Now I don't know why that is. Right? But because I can hide it, right? Right, where do I set? I want to see where I set this. Right, so if I look for references, right, so it must set it in the hack button. If I set up a code letter, yeah. Right, so basically what I can do, right, is I can do this again. Right, this will probably give you a better idea of what's going on here. Right, if I set it at 0, 3, X is columns, rows is, right, I'll set it at 10, 0, right? In fact, I'm going to do for loop. Let's do this the simple way. Right, we'll break that. Then we'll do x, then we'll say 5. Now I'm not adding in the widget for the actual code, right? But I could easily do that now, right? But basically what I'm doing here is I'm going to be hiding these ones. See that? And this is just a little bonus here for Mr. Spock. So fundamentally, what I could actually do here is add a variable, right? And call it code position. Okay. And I could make it an int point. Okay. Now you could randomly get this, right? And so we could say, let's say it's 6 and 6, right? Well, if it starts at 6 and 6, and we know it's 6 long, right? Then what we can do is get the code position, right? Then break it, right? And then we can add it then we can add it to that position, and then that goes in X, then Y goes in Y. We can drag this across. Then if we save that and press play, now it's at position 6, 6. Okay? And if you wanted to go further and basically end up writing the whole damn thing, we could do that, because we're mental, right? What you could do is add another variable. Now, we can use the code position for two things, right? We can use the code position to actually draw it, and we could use the code position to actually find out where right, I'll show you in a minute. Right, we can use it to actually trigger the fact that the person has found it, okay? But the next thing we need to do is say code, right? And that code is going to be a string, okay? Now, what we can do here is we can say Spocky, right? And the next thing that we want to do is we probably don't want to do this. We probably want these things in the hack pad, in the parent, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add those two variables, right? So we're going to have an int point. And that is going to be the code position. We're going to delete these in a minute from the other thing, right? And we're going to say code, right? And that's going to be a string. So we'll save that. And what we'll do here is we'll delete that. Then we'll delete that. Right, now this isn't going to like this, but what we can do is we can drag this in, and then we can get the code position for here, and put, oops, we can put that in there. Okay, then if we go back to the hack pad, right, we can give this a default and basically set it again to, let's say, 6.6. Okay. And our next interesting part is we're going to be creating our widgets except we're going to be creating the codes, right? And then we're going to be adding to this thing. Okay? So that's random, that's not. Right? So this is the codes. Okay? This is the bit that draws the code. Okay, so we know what point to start at, and we know which point, how long the code is. Okay, so that's our code position, and this is the code itself, right? So for this next part, we can say get the length, and then we say -1, right? And this is me thinking on the fly of how to do this, by the way. And then I do a for loop. And that goes in the last index. And we break that. Right? And then we do this and we break that, and then we add that to that, and then we plug in Y to the row, we plug in that to the column. Okay. And what we actually need to do here is tell it, so in our hack button, code letter, right, we're doing that. Where do we set the text on it is the question. Code letter, right, okay. So we add a variable. I'm going to say code letter. Well, let's just call it letter. Right, and it's going to be a string. Save that. And it's going to be instance editable, and it's going to be expose on spawn. Okay. And then we're going to say get a letter. And this might not be it, but we'll soon find out. Okay, save that. Go back to our hack pad. And our letter is going to be our code. Left chop, select string, so we want to do a left chop, right chop. Normally you would just say in string and then give it a position to start. Right, this is just a little quirk. Right, so we'd want to say left chop, or what's left? Pad the left of the string specified numbers. No, we don't want to do that. Right, so we'd want to do left. And it's going to be index +1. And then we want to do right chop. I believe 1. Then that would go in there. I don't know how these string work. As I said, Unreal's a lot different to how you manipulate strings, so I'm kind of guessing at this point. But what we'd want to do is add a breakpoint here. Now, what we'd have to do here is give it a code, right? So we can say Spocky, and if we press play, then hit our button, our first letter should be an S. Spocky. And that should be 1, 0, plus 1. Okay, whatever. Wow. There's our Spocky. It's actually there, okay? But it's not drawing it at the right place, but that's okay because that's kind of what I expected. Okay. Now we know that the code position is 6.6. So when we create the hack button, we get this position now. The interesting thing there is whether or not this is actually in the right place. So the best way to find out is add a breakpoint there and add a breakpoint there, and then if we press play, we shall see if these are the right things. Ah, wait a minute. Right. Stop that just now. That goes there. That goes there. Right. Right, we'll disable that and we'll resume. Now disable that and we'll disable this. Resume. Now you'll notice there we've got kinda right. Right, but it's not quite right. Right, I'm going to do a quick check on what the equivalent of an int string is. Right, we're just quickly checking here for the equivalent of an in string. Okay, right, that's kind of one of the ones that, this is actually more of a, what do you call it? This is more like an SQL thing, right? So we start at the index and we just do 1. And that should give us our letter. Okay. And the interesting thing is it's doing it the wrong way round. And that's because this one's the other way round. And that should come from here. There you go, Spocky. There's our code. How do you think of that then? There is our code, Spocky. Now, the interesting thing here is, right, if I click on a hack button, right, and I go on clicked, right, I can do a print string. Okay, so I can put this for, let's say, 20 seconds. And I can say hackpad get, then I can say code position, okay, and then I can say column get row get, and then quite simply, to show that somebody has found this, I can say break endpoint, and I can say if column equals X, and the row equals Y, and both of these are true, so I can say and then I can put that in there. Then I can branch off of this, branch, right? I can say save that. I can press play, then F, right? Then you'll notice nothing happens, but if I press here, I get hello. Right? Nothing happens, nothing happens. Hello. Okay. So that is me actually breaking the code, right? So I can say code broken, right? And we can make it a red color. Save that. So click on that, code broken. Click anywhere else, nothing happens. Nothing happens if I do it there, nothing happens. But if I click at the start, code broken. How's about that? So there you have it, there's your code breaker. Done in real time. And that's it. So hopefully that was an interesting little bonus for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed that. If you did, hit like and subscribe, check out the description, join the Discord, or you can support the channel using Patreon, get your name in the credits of the game, or you can check out my previous game on Steam, FTD2, even adding it to your wishlist, guys, would help. And I shall see you at 8 PM Central tonight. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. Bye bye for now.